Hello, my name is Rafael Pencor, and the country that I chose was the United States, and the topic is history of soul food. So, origins and influences. It's crucial to understand that while soul food is typically associated with the South, this is not always the case. Although the phrases are sometimes used in tandem, certain Southern meals and soul foods have basic differences that have a lot to do with tradition, culture, and history. And in the 1960s, soul food came to light. Well, the term soul food, along with the civil rights movement. Uh, Soul food is a cuisine that's been a part of traditional African American culture in the southern United States since the 17th century. The cuisine continued to evolve over the years, as many cuisines do, but the dishes and recipes today reflect much of the history and changes in both the South and in African American cultures. So during the period of slavery in the United States from 1619 to 1865, most of what Africans and African Americans ate was regulated by the plantation owners. It usually amounted to a bag of starch, such as rice, sweet potatoes, or cornmeal, some meat, and a small amount of molasses just distributed to each slave once a week. That was it. No veggies, no dairy, and no fruit. And any other food had to be foraged, collected, or grown by slaves themselves. This is where the early soul food cuisine was influenced by a wide variety of cultures such as indigenous American, European, and especially African. So West African heritage. So enslaved Africans were forcibly brought to the Americas through the transatlantic slave trade from the 16th to the 19th century, including the southern to the Americas, including the southern United States, during the transatlantic slave trade. These Africans brought with them various culinary traditions and ingredients from West Africa, which would later influence the development of soul food. Um, Enslaved Africans also brought over okra and colana, which Western Africans often chewed as a source of caffeine for energy. And a fun fact, the colana is also stated as a primary driver in the soda industry and also a key ingredient in the original cola formulation. Since many fruits and vegetables were brought from Africa and grew well in the South, they took it as an opportunity to plant gardens to help sustain themselves and others in their communities. West African cuisine is known for its one pot dishes such as jollof rice and gumbo. These dishes influence the development of dishes like gumbo and hoppin' john in the American South. European influence. So the traditional soul food dish of fried chicken has origins in both West African and European cooking methods, due to the fact that they were regularly given the opportunity to raise chickens. It became very popular among African Americans who were still in slavery, and over time, African American chefs evolved fried chicken into a classic Southern meal that is closely related to soul cuisine. During the colonial era, European settlers brought dairy farming and its products to the Americas, especially from nations like England, France, and Spain. Some of the animals that were brought were sheep, goats, and cows for milk production. This led to dairy ingredients like milk, butter, and cheese to be incorporated into Southern American cuisine, like mac and cheese, as many of us love. Some food preservation techniques were salting as it drew out moisture from the meat and in the process killing the bacteria. Also, pickling allowed to store vegetables so they wouldn't go bad as fast. Native American contribution. Corn was a staple crop for many Native American tribes, and it became a fundamental ingredient in Southern cuisine. Cornbread, a quintessential soul food item, as a direct descendant of Native American corn based bread recipes, it was adapted and integrated into African American cooking. Native Americans were skilled hunters and gatherers, and they introduced Southerners to the use of wild games such as venison and squirrel, and venison it would be like deer. These meats were incorporated into Southern stews and other dishes. Native Americans used various cooking techniques such as smoking, drying, and pit roasting, which influenced the way certain foods were prepared and preserved in the South, such as ribs and brisket, as you can see in the picture. It's important to recognize that the contributions of Native Americans to Southern and soul food are part of a complex history of culture, exchange, and adaptation. Native American foodways were integrated into the broader Southern culinary tradition, and many of these foods and techniques continue to be celebrated in soul food today. Geography and climate. The southern United States, the heartland of soul food, is the southern United States, which includes states like Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana, and South Carolina. The geography of the South is characterized by fertile soil, extensive farmland, and a long growing season due to its warm, humid climate. Coastal areas, coastal regions such as the Gulf Coast and Low Country have access to an abundance of seafood, including shrimp, crab, and fish. This availability has influenced dishes like gumbo, shrimp and grits, and seafood boils in the Appalachian region. The Appalachian region includes the states Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana. As you can see in the second picture, the blue area, um, with its mountainous terrain, has a unique soul food tradition. The cooler climate and rugged landscape influence the use of preserved foods such as pickled vegetables and smoked meats in the Appalachian soul food. Hot and humid climate in the Deep South. The hot and humid climate of the Deep South supports the growth of crops like okra, collard greens, sweet potatoes, and peanuts. It also facilitates the cultivation of rice in the areas like the Carolinas. These ingredients are central to many soul food dishes. Cooler climate in the Appalachia. The cooler climate in the Appalachian region influenced the use of heartier ingredients like beans, corn, and smoked meats in the Appalachian soul food. Dishes like soup and beans and corn pudding are rooted in this tradition. So, modern soul food variations. Um, Healthier soul food focuses on reducing fat, sodium, and cholesterol content while trying to maintain the flavors and essence of traditional dishes. These modifications have enabled soul food to be much healthier without compromising its flavors and cultural significance. Some of these examples are smothered oxtails, which is on the top right picture, Creole crab cakes, which is the middle one, and slow cooker smothered turkeys, which is on the bottom right. These dishes attempt to change traditional soul food recipes with modern techniques and flavors, offering a lighter and more health conscious alternative to classic dishes. This evolution in soul food cuisine shows its adaptability and resilience as it continues to appeal to new generations of diners while honoring its rich cultural heritage and history. Modern soul food variations continued. So, vegan soul food adapts classic recipes to exclude animal products, offering a plant based alternative for those seeking a cruelty free and environmentally friendly option. Vegan soul food is generally lower in saturated fat and cholesterol than the usual traditional soul food and may also provide a good source of fiber, vitamins, and even minerals. Some examples of vegan adaptations of traditional soul food dishes include vegan mac and cheese, which has vegan butter, all purpose flour, coconut milk, and vegetable stock. Vegan fried chicken is made out of seitan, which is a plant based meat substitute that is made out of wheat, gluten, mimicking the taste and texture of chicken. And then vegan gumbo being made out of beans, mushrooms, and okra. Uh, the growing popularity of vegan and soul food showcases the versatility and inclusivity of this cuisine as it continues to evolve to cater to a wider range of dietary preferences and health concerns. This innovation in soul food demonstrates its ability to be able to adapt and thrive in a changing culinary landscape while still honoring the flavors, textures, and traditions that define it. So the Great Migration, from the 1910s to the 1970s. The first migration was from the 1910s to the 1940s. So after years of spiraling debt and unbearable racism and oppression, millions of Southern blacks decided that the best solution was to simply leave this massive movement of people. To simply leave this massive movement of people was the Great Migration, and it happened in waves over the course of roughly 7 decades, from the 1910s to the 1970s. Just like any other immigrant group arriving in a new place, the people who moved tried to create home and build community, and food was a critical factor to achieving both. Once these immigrants prospered, they ate more prestige foods from the old country during the week rather than saving such dishes for special occasions. In the first wave, they migrated to New York, Chicago, Detroit, and Pittsburgh. As you can see in the top right picture, they first migrated to those cities first. And the second wave had a profound influence on the spread and evolution of soul food in the urban centers. There was growing demand for quick and cheaper meals. This led to the establishment of soul food restaurants and eateries that catered to the taste of the migrating African American population. They served traditional dishes and also adapted to local preferences. The popularity of soul food dishes such as fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, and black eyed peas began to spread through mainstream American cuisine. So these dishes became beloved comfort foods eaten by people of all backgrounds and contributing to culture fusion that characterized American food. So the second migration happened from the 1940s to the 1970s, and this time they migrated to the West, and the three West states that they migrated to were California, Oregon, Washington. The Great Migration was a pivotal event in American history. It brought millions of African Americans from rural South to urban centers in the North and West. This movement not only spread soul food to new regions, but also led to regional adaptations of traditional recipes. And some iconic soul food dishes include, well, as mentioned before, were cornbread, baked macaroni and cheese. That can be a vegan option as well. Collard greens, black eyed peas, and fried okra. And this concludes my presentation.